Hello, everyone. There are those who arrive here running, not literally, but in the way certain people move through their days, with that low, persistent sense that they're slightly behind something, that whatever is coming is already closer than they're ready for. If you know that feeling, if it's been sitting with you lately in a way that doesn't quite let you rest, then maybe this is exactly where you were supposed to stop. Um, you feel it, that particular pressure, the one that doesn't have a clean name yet. Not anxiety, exactly. Not fear, exactly. Something closer to urgency. The sense that time is doing something you haven't fully consented to, moving in a direction towards something. And the distance between where you are now and where that something is feels shorter than it did, shorter than you're comfortable with. And the version of you that needs to meet it, that needs to be ready when it arrives, doesn't feel quite assembled yet. And so the urgency builds in the quiet moments, in the spaces between doing the commute, the shower, the specific quality of 3 a.m., when the noise has stopped and the pressure has nothing to compete with anymore. It just sits there, unresolvable, pointing at something you can feel the shape of, but can't quite see clearly enough to do anything about. And the not seeing clearly, that's the particular cruelty of this kind of urgency. Because urgency without a clear object has nowhere to go. It can't be acted on. It can't be resolved by doing something specific. It just circulates through the body, through the thoughts, through the days. This formless pressure that something must be done without the accompanying clarity of what exactly that something is, think. And in the absence of that clarity, in the gap between the urgency and the object, the mind fills in, the way minds do, with whatever is already there, with the fears that have been waiting, patient, well rehearsed, for exactly this kind of opening. And suddenly the urgency has a face, several faces. The relationship that isn't quite resolved, the financial situation that isn't quite stable, the version of yourself you meant to become by now, the things undone, the things unsaid, the things you've been meaning to address, since at some point that's now harder to remember than you'd like. And the urgency attaches itself to all of it simultaneously, making everything feel equally pressing, equally behind, equally in need of immediate attention, right now, today, before whatever is coming gets here, before the thing you can feel approaching finds you still unready, still unfinished, still not quite the version of yourself you meant to be by now. And that phrase, by now, is worth stopping at because it's carrying something heavier than it appears. By now implies a schedule, a timeline, a version of how things were supposed to go that exists somewhere, maybe clearly maybe vaguely in the back of your mind. And against that timeline, against that supposed to, the current reality gets measured and found in some ways, in some areas, behind. And the gap between where you are and where the timeline said you'd be, that gap is part of what the urgency is made of. Not all of it, but a significant part, the gap that whispers, you should have done more by now, been more by now, resolved more, built more, become more by now. And something is coming. The urgency insists that will make the gap visible. That will expose the behindness. That will arrive before you've had time to close the distance between where you are and where you were supposed to be. But here's the question worth asking, slowly, carefully, about that timeline, about the supposed to, about the schedule against which you've been measuring the gap. Whose timeline is it? Not rhetorically. Actually, where did it come from? The specific version of by now that's been running in the background. Where was it set? By whom? In what context? At what age did you absorb the schedule of how a life is supposed to go? What did you see around you, in the people who raised you, in the culture that shaped you, in the comparisons that were made that told you when certain things were supposed to have happened, were supposed to be in place, were supposed to be resolved? Because the timeline, the one generating the urgency, isn't yours originally. It was given to you, absorbed, internalized in the specific, invisible way that the most powerful beliefs get internalized, not through argument, not through decision, but through repetition, through observation, through the accumulation of what was modeled and what was expected and what was quietly communicated as the right pace for a life. And you took it in. The way you took in so many things without knowing you were taking it in, without being asked whether it fit, and now it runs that inherited timeline in the background of everything, generating urgency, generating the by now, generating the gap between where you are and where something external, something absorbed, something that was never really yours said you'd be. And the pressure of that gap, the urgency it produces, feels like a signal about the future, but it might actually be mostly a signal about the past, about the schedule you inherited, about the supposed to that was handed to you before you were old enough to question whether it applied. Now, here's where it gets more complicated, because not all of the urgency is inherited. Some of it, maybe a significant part of it, is real, is yours, comes from a genuine internal knowing that something needs to move, that a particular way of being a particular pattern, a particular avoidance, a particular version of staying small has run its course, has been running past its useful life. And the urgency is, in part, the pressure of that knowing, the internal insistence of something that's ready to change, but hasn't been given permission yet. And separating those two, the inherited urgency from the genuine one, is maybe the most important thing you could do right now, because they require completely different responses. The inherited urgency, the one about the timeline, the supposed to, the by now, needs examination, needs to be looked at clearly, needs to be asked, whose schedule is this? Does it apply to my actual life? Is the gap it's measuring a real gap, or just the distance between my life and someone else's map of it? But the genuine urgency, the one that comes from inside, needs something different. Not examination, not questioning, listening, real, patient, undistracted listening. Because that urgency, the genuine kind, is trying to tell you something specific, something that has been trying to be heard through all the noise of the inherited kind, something that knows not from a schedule, not from a comparison, but from the inside of your own life, that something is ready, that something has been waiting long enough for you to stop running, long enough to hear it. And the preparation, the real preparation, not the panicked kind, starts there. Not in the doing, not in the list of things to fix before whatever is coming arrives, not in the frantic closing of gaps against an inherited timeline, but in the listening, in the stillness, however brief, however uncomfortable, that lets you hear which urgency is real and which is borrowed, which pressure belongs to you, and which belongs to the schedule that was handed to you before you were old enough to choose. Because the thing that's coming, whatever it is, doesn't need the panicked version of you, doesn't need the version that's been running slightly behind something for so long that the running has started to feel like just how you move. That version is tired. You can feel it, the specific tiredness of someone who has been preparing urgently, constantly, for something that keeps not arriving in the form they prepared for. And the preparing itself has become the thing that's exhausting. More exhausting, maybe, than whatever it was meant to protect against. What the coming thing needs, what you need to meet it, is the other version. The one underneath the urgency, the one that isn't running, the one that isn't behind because it stopped measuring itself against a timeline it didn't choose, the one that is right now, exactly as it is. Sufficient, not complete, not finished, not without things that still need attention, but sufficient, real, present, capable, not in the prepared sense, but in the alive sense, in the sense of someone who is here, fully here, when the thing arrives, without the running, without the behind, without the gap between where they are and where they were supposed to be. Because the supposed to, that particular inherited, quietly devastating supposed to, is maybe the thing most worth releasing. Not the wanting, not the ambition, not the genuine internal knowing that certain things need to move, but the schedule, the timeline, the by now, the version of the life that was supposed to be in place already, assembled, resolved, further along, that generates the gap, that generates the urgency, that keeps you slightly behind something that may not even be real. Your life, this actual one, the real one, is on its own schedule, not the inherited one, not the compared one, not the one that was handed to you before you knew enough to hand it back. Its own schedule, shaped by the specific things that happened to you, by the particular detours and delays and extended stays in places you didn't plan to be, that made you who you actually are. Not who the timeline expected, who you actually are, which is when you stop measuring against the supposed to, more than enough, more than ready, more than capable of meeting whatever is coming, without the preparation being finished first. Nothing is ever finished first. That's the thing the urgency doesn't tell you. Nobody meets the significant moments of their life fully prepared, fully assembled, fully caught up to the timeline. They meet them as they are, incomplete, still becoming, carrying unresolved things, and they find in the meeting of it that they were more ready than the urgency said they were, that the preparation that mattered wasn't the frantic kind, it was the living kind. The accumulation of all the days, even the behind ones, even the unready ones, that brought them exactly here, to this moment, to this approaching thing as themselves, fully, imperfectly, sufficiently. You are sufficiently prepared, not by the timeline's measure, not by the supposed to standards, but by the only measure that actually applies. You have lived every day that brought you to this one. You have survived everything that the urgency was afraid of. You have arrived here, now, in this specific moment, with everything you need, to meet whatever comes next. Not everything you wanted to have, not everything the schedule said you'd have, everything you need, which has always been enough. Even when the urgency said otherwise. Especially then, you are not behind. You are not unready. You are not in any way that actually matters unprepared. You are here right now in this moment, which is exactly precisely where you need to be for whatever comes, however it arrives. You are already enough